After a 7-hour train trip from Malmö the day before, we were finally here, in Stockholm. This day started with a slow step towards the metro. The plan was to stay in the capital, and we actually did. We have been told that it was a bit colder here in this part of Sweden than we're used to in Malmö. But no one expected this. It was almost unbearable. Claes Florgård is a professor in landscape architecture in SLU Ultuna. He was so kind to be our guide for this day.
Because it was the first on the United Nations heritage list from the 20th century, and of course we're very fond of that it took a piece of landscape architecture and put it on the heritage list.
Our first stop was in the forest churchyard, or like the native like to call it, Skogkirkegården, or something like that. On the sign at the entrance says following: Skogkirkegården was inscribed at 1994 on the UNESCO World Heritage List of the Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage. Inscription on the list confirms the exceptional universal value of a cultural or natural site, which deserves protection for the benefits of all humanity. When we had laid our blessing on Skogkirkegården, we head to the next destination. It's a rather new building area in Stockholm. Before, it was a green area. The designer walked there around and looked at the trees. He picked out the most astonishing and most fascinating oaks and kept them in the planning. By doing that, he kept the old green charisma from the early state and designed the housing not as close together as often is done. Stockholm is a very beautiful capital and sometimes mentioned as the Venice of the North. That's no wonder, it lies the ocean level almost on the doorsteps in many houses. This sauna is situated in the water surface, and the locals like to call it a cold bath. And the reason for that is that it's so easy to jump into the sea, get a cold bath, and then back into the warm sauna. Promenaden is a narrow and long garden that is situated between the sea and a traffic street. It is barely 10 meters wide in most cases. It's a unique park because in the old days people wanted to spare a little green area, and that was the result. We saluted him with a little present and gave him a warm goodbye. Claes Florgård is a man of wisdom. The next morning we traveled to Ropsten, a suburb of Stockholm. There we had a lecture in Congregation House by two foresters from the Swedish Forest Agency, Johan Frosilla and Magnus Lind. After lunch we went out to the forest. Forest manager of forests in Lindingur municipality, Bertil Sandberg, honored us with his presence, and he told us how many kinds of forest types were in this forest, how they were maintained and why. But he could not be with us for long. He had to go out and take care of some business. Go hunting. Like the day before, it was a cold day. Standing still can have freezing effects on people, so Johanna arranged a little warming up game, while Magnus made the hot berry drinks ready. On Thursday we went to another suburb of Stockholm, Haninge municipality, to see a little part of a recreational forest. We were welcomed there by Kristina Grönberg and Mona Ekelund from the municipality. This forest is not a typical recreational forest like we are used to, but since the project is not older than few years old, it is not fully prepared, although European Union is sponsoring it partly. Here they have handicapped involved in the designing process. A member in an organization for people with mobility impairments, Maria Johansson, is helping with the design. It was really interesting hearing her points of view. Minor things can make huge difference. What kind of ground surface is selected, how information signs can easily be a little lower than they are usual, designing of benches and more like that. This forest is in between housing area, although you get the feeling that you're in the middle of a much bigger forest. say that communicative planning were involved when Per Wallander, a regular house owner, and Carl of Pettersson, the neighborhood forest owner, agreed on settlement that suited them both. Because of the forest, Per just recently bought a house there, and when Carl just planned to cut down his forest, Per got confused because the municipality told him that this forest was not supposed to be cut down. Per and all his 70 neighbors signed a contract with Carl for keeping 200 meters long belt, 50 meters wide, along their houses, instead for a certain price for 49 years, so that everybody will live happily ever after, at least until